Hi guys, thank you for joining another episode of Come and Keep the Conversation Going. I'm really excited tonight. I've got Emily Carter and Elizabeth Purnell, who happens to be my wife, talking about the thing of women in leadership. And just today I was reading a little bit from Job, and it's not to try and put my case too far forward, but it says here that nowhere in the land were there found women as beautiful as Job's daughters, and their father granted them an inheritance along with their brothers. And that's really what we want to sort of unpack with Emily and Lissie tonight, is that they are heirs of all that God has, and that must, in my view, it must include that women can be in leadership. So we're not here to debate whether they should or we shouldn't. We're just talking about some of the fun, some of the differences that women bring to the table in leadership, and also some of the challenges. So I hope you really enjoy this episode. We're looking forward to a great time.
Jesus, we remember your kindness, even when we forget. You remind us how you left the 99 to find us.
Okay, so guys, it's really good to have you on. Come and keep the conversation going. Emily, thank you for coming all the way from Upminster, which is a little way down the A127.
Yeah.
And Lizzie, thank you for coming and being you, which I know is
going
going to be
me out the back room.
Yes. So anyway, just as always, start with this. My mother-in-law, whoever we have on, come and keep the conversation going, she always says, "Can we find out a little bit about themselves?" So I wonder, guys, would you like to just talk a little bit?
Okay, Mum. I'm Lizzie. I'm Lizzie, married to Rob. I've been in church leadership for many years, just loving Jesus. Married with 2 children, 7 grandchildren. We're just so grateful to God.
We are. Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm also married with 2 children. Lead the church with my husband and another male leader as well. 3 of us lead the church there in Hornchurch. 2 teenage boys. They're part of a marching band, so that takes up a lot of our time. They do a lot of shows and events and fundraising, so band is another big part of our life as well as the church. So that's most of our life, really.
And you were a school teacher.
Yes, many years ago.
And you worked with someone that's well known to us in Comma, Mr. Alan Cass.
Yes, so he was my head teacher for 5 years, worked with him in Thurrock. Yes, I've known him a long time.
And he's a real inspiration, isn't he?
He is.
So if you hear that, Alan, you're a real inspiration to many people. But anyway, we want to talk a little bit about women in leadership tonight. I know, Lizzie, you've been in leadership for as long as me. So I was 24, and I think you were.
I was a child.
Yes. No, hang on. We could be arrested for that now. We need to be careful. Yeah, you.
Yeah, I was 22, 23. Yeah.
And I know, Emily, you've just recently come into frontline leadership.
Yeah.
So it's really great to have two, not ends of the spectrum, but, Liz has got a lot more experience and Emily's new to it, probably more. The excitement is still
She's probably got a lot more
running.
wisdom.
Yeah. So, but I just, was saying earlier that I read this morning in Job, and I know, Lizzie, you said, haven't you seen that before? But I clearly did on the 21st of June, 2018. But anyway, it says this: nowhere in all the land were there found women as beautiful as Job's daughters. So that's a real promise to us, to you guys particularly, that you're beautiful in the Lord. And their father granted them an inheritance along with their brothers. And, we're not here to talk around the rights and wrongs of women in leadership. We're sold out members that there is no ceiling for women in the bride of Christ. And but there are differences between men and women.
Absolutely.
And I know you and I would operate differently. Our strengths and weaknesses, but you would lead in a different way to me. So I wonder, as a woman that's been in church leadership since the age of 22, 23, what are some of the things that you have learned?
I'm still learning. For me, I think it's okay to be you. It's okay to be female and to be a leader. I don't have to compete. I don't have to try and be a leader as a male. I bring my femininity. I bring who I am who God created me to be into that role. And I believe that's anybody that comes into the role of leadership should be confident who they are in God. And it's because of who you are that's why you're there. And your character. Character is the most important. And I believe a godly character is demonstrated in how you lead. And so over the years, I've probably gained more in confidence. I'd like to say I'm completely confident, because I think there's always challenges, and you wrestle with being a woman in leadership. And as long as I've been in leadership, there are still wrestles that you have to journey, stuff that you have to journey. But I think there is something very beautiful that a woman brings into leadership. And there's a strength a woman brings into leadership. And I believe it's part of our purpose and our calling. And it's been an absolute privilege.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I say a few weeks, you come to me, didn't you? And one of us was having a bit of a more challenging time in our leadership. And you said, isn't it sad that sometimes you're made to feel that because you're a woman, you're called emotional or defensive,
Yeah.
as opposed to, like a man can just, it's different. And you said that I think your words cut into me, though they was, it seems like you've got, even in our church today, I still have to act like a male in order to lead.
Yeah.
So would you like to just unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think in many ways, I think as a woman, if you show your vulnerability and the emotion, because as women, we are created differently. And I think sometimes because we bring a vulnerability and into leadership, it can be seen as weak or emotional. I think if you come across as strong and confident in what God is saying, you can be seen as controlling. And I think you never quite know if you've hit the balance. And I think that's something that I still probably have challenged with. And often, particularly if you're in leadership in a couple, I often laugh. I was only talking to somebody this week who, her and her husband have been in leadership in ministry.
Significant national profile.
Significant, yeah. And it was interesting. We were at a particular event, and people were coming and walking past her and greeting her husband, literally one person after the other. And I turned to her and I laughed because I said, isn't it amazing? I said, there was a couple of people that did greet her, but it was like, literally just walked past her. And she said, well, I guess I'm not the significant one. And I said to her, you must be the person that's behind this, and all he does. And they're obviously a beautiful couple. But I just thought that's often the case, and I've been in situations where you will often get the telephone calls from, other leaders, and this is not a criticism of leadership because we love our leadership. But in the past, where the telephone calls would be with you, and no one would think to ring me, So that's been a challenge. Probably sometimes I would just want to switch off.
But I have to say, we had a friend. We still got a friend. He's called Steve Clifford, and once, I picked the phone up and he said, "Can I speak to Lissie?" I just want to honour Steve. That was not something we've experienced a lot as a couple. It's normally to speak with me, and you kind of a part of the. I was going to say the baggage, but part of the, the deal.
And it felt like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the situation was.
So Emily, obviously you're new to leadership. We were in the Pioneer Network, and women in leadership was never an issue.
And celebrated.
And celebrated, yeah. And in fact, one of the champion, Ness Wilson, she's leading Pioneer. I think it's UK. I think Billy's still doing. Billy Kennedy's still doing the global, but you obviously were part of a network where women in leadership wasn't the norm.
That's right.
And
at all.
In the recent years, you've obviously gone to a church and that has changed. So what was that? How have you journeyed that transition?
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting because, as you say, I was brought up in a church where women weren't in leadership. I didn't question it. It wasn't the done thing. So, I was brought up there from a young child. Women didn't lead and women didn't preach. So I just thought that was what church was. I was there from 8 years old. So moving away from that, and that's not the just want to say that's not the reason why we moved away from that church. That's just geographical things. So yes, then have come into a church in the last kind of 5 to 6 years where women were in leadership. So I did have to journey that a bit. I know we said we're not going to talk about the ins and outs, but I did have to do that for myself and check in where my understanding was about women, and and understand a lot more about that now. And it's lovely hearing even new verses that I've not heard before about women. So that's really great. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey, and I've probably been my own worst critic about whether it is right or not. I have got I'm really blessed with a really hospitable, welcoming church that, as far as I know, nobody's had any problems with me being the kind of most visible leader. I think in the past there's been women leaders, but they've been kind of volunteers and stuff, whereas now I've stepped into a full-time employed role as a leader, and the other two leaders are volunteers, the other two male leaders, and they have secular full-time jobs as well. So although we have established our leadership as flat level with no seniority, I am the most visible. So I am the one that gets the phone calls and the text messages and the queries and the criticisms and the everything. But generally I've been championed and accepted, because the big change only really happened. I was doing some part-time work for the church, but the change into this kind of visible only employed female leader has literally only been since March. So yeah, I've been really pleasantly surprised how people have accepted me. I didn't know how that news was going to go down when it was announced to the church, but there was a round of applause when it was announced, so I took that as a good sign.
That's a good sign.
But yeah, I've probably just been my own worst critic, and worry about whether it definitely is okay to be a woman in leadership. My family are still in the church where women are not in leadership. So after speaking with Rob once, I was like, yeah, I should actually see, I'd be interested to know where my parents are at. And they were like, no, it's fine. We're really proud of you. It's great. And so I've kind of had that affirmation as well. And part of what I've done as I've just come into leadership is lots of reaching out to various other places like you guys and Eastgate, the AOG, which is the group of churches we're with, other leaders in local churches to Hornchurch, Romford. That's been a big part of my role in the last couple of months. And yeah, it's just been great. I've had some real affirmation. We've already spoken about Alan Cass, so he's my mentor. I see him monthly. He really affirms me as a woman in leadership. Pete Carter's also done the same. That meant a lot. You, Rob, have done the same. So that's really helped my understanding that, this is good, this is of God. We're all created in his image, and we're all co-labourers with him. So, that's
and,
where I'm at.
I think the thing for us is that, there have been people that have trailblazed. I mean, we in Essex, there was Christine Noble, who was a real trailblazer, very intimidating person, but really loved the Lord.
Beautiful.
And in her older age, we were so overwhelmed at everything we went to. Practically, Christine and John Noble were there, and they were still giving it their all, even though they were not at that stage, no longer leading. But Christine trailblazed for many, and I guess you guys. Particularly you, Liz, you're slightly younger than Christine. You picked up a baton, didn't you? And you run with it.
Yeah.
And Emily, you're picking up a baton and you're running it. And I think for people like Christine, it was extremely hard.
And I think
it's made it easier for you guys, hasn't it? And,
my mum, she was obviously a woman in leadership, and that was a generation that really had to not fight, but contend for what they believed God was doing, and I guess at times that you can still feel like you're still contending. We are blessed in the environment that we are here at New Life Church Crouch Valley, and we are celebrated, and we have a couple of women on our leadership, and So it's really, really great. And I think when you've got men that really stand and support you and work with you, and the guys who we work with are superb, and we know we are valued in our own right. So I celebrate them.
Yep. I think that's such a key thing, that we not just value women in leadership, but we value men, we value younger people, whether they're male or female, just to come up and step up. Because there's ground for us to take. We're believing for revival. We're believing for the United Kingdom. There's something going on that's a gentle revival. I don't mind what it's happening, but people are coming into churches and asking questions. People are finding Christ in more significant numbers than we've experienced for a while. And I just think there's a lot to celebrate. And we are the bride of Christ, and you guys have been brides in the natural. But it's hard for men to think that we're a bride, and our bridegroom is coming back for us. So, sometimes our fixed positions that we have, just maybe God's got something to speak into that. And I know you, for you both, isn't it? You're desperate to see God work in your individual environments.
Yeah, and it's such an honour to be able to be part of that. And just hearing you talk about people that have pioneered, it is, I'm really grateful to be able to, stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before. And I do see, I want to continue that so that the future generations can stand on my shoulders and go further than I've gone, and keep that, momentum going. But really grateful that for women that have done it before, and that I can look up to and see, this is okay, this is right. And, having these conversations with Lissie about how that feels, and hearing you tonight talk about, if you act like this, you're a bit too aggressive. If you act like that, you're a bit too emotional, and it does feel like that. So, it's really important to know that we are still pioneering for the next generation as well.
Absolutely.
We've got to keep this momentum going for them.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so key to know who you are in Christ. As a woman in leadership, you've got to be confident about that. And as soon as the enemy comes in and starts messing with the lies, that can take you off key. And so that is really important, that you know who you are, but what God has called you to. And it's been an absolute privilege. But I think we bring an element into leadership that is a real positive. I think we bring a gentleness. I think we bring we often laugh as a couple, because I think we often pick up things before guys. I have as women, this ability to just have a discerning spirit on stuff. And I think recognizing that we work together as the body of Christ, and what is, you are gifted in, or Emily's gifted in, or whatever, we are the body of Christ working together, and God's, our heart is to serve him. And so I think, as a woman, it's been a privilege. And as I look back, and obviously we're coming to the latter part of our leadership, and I look back over the years, and I wish now I knew what I know now when I started. I think any leader would say that. But particularly as a woman, that knowing that you are there for who you are, and not just the wife of, and that would be really helpful.
So guys, we're just going to take a short break. Gracie Taylor's going to sing a song for us, and then we'll be right back. Thank you.
I've tried so hard to see it. Took me so long to believe it. You chose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve, and you take the broken things and raise them to glory. champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who's conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who's conquered it all. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated. By the power of your name, I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all.
So, hey guys, thank you for being with us on Come and Keep the Conversation Going. It's really great to have Emily Carter and Lissie Purnell with us. We're just exploring women in leadership, you know, some of the challenges. And so I'm just going to ask you some questions. So, Lissie, you know, you've been part of a leadership team for, well, it's 30 odd years, 40 years. Yeah, trying to work out is... Yeah, it'll be 40 years this year. So what are some of the changes that you've seen in leadership? Not
My
just
goodness.
about men and women.
I think church leadership has completely changed. I think just what we have to manage these days, and obviously as the church has grown, responsibility and what we are responsible for. You know, I often look at some of the, you know, I'm doing this risk assessments and other stuff. I sit there thinking, I'm not sure I come into church leadership for this, you know. So it has changed tremendously. And there's benefits. I think there's some negatives as well. When I look at some of the stuff, I think for me, when I look at some of the stuff, the material we have now, and some of the teaching that we have now, and I look and think, if only, you know, for me, I am a passionate about Keys for Freedom. It's a course that we run within You Love Church Crouch Valley. And if I had been doing this course 20, 30, 40 years ago, it would radically change my life, but also other people's lives. I think the teaching we've had from Bethel and other places has so changed our mindsets on things, enabling us to actually be the people God has called us to be. If someone had told me when I was, coming into my adulthood that you would be in church leadership and speaking to people and, doing the things that you do, it would have been the furthest thing from my mind, from someone who was a shy, timid, withdrawn person. But because who God has created me to be, and recognising that and walking into that truth, then enabled me to do it. So don't ever dismiss yourself because of who you think you are. Yeah. Believe what God has spoken over your life.
So a key thing for us would be, identity,
Yep.
being secure in who you are. So, we would advocate very strongly that you're not leadership. Church leadership is just something that you do, but your identity is that you are a son or daughter of the King, and you are royalty. And I know for me, Danny Silk has really helped me to understand knowing who you are. A lot of others, but that teaching from Danny about culture of honour, keep your love on, being clear with communication, expressing what you feel rather than avoiding issues. And I know in our journey, confrontation has not been something you find particularly easy.
No, and that's something I've had to understand, that there are different ways of confrontation, and the way, and recognising that sometimes I have to be who I am and not be put under pressure to be somebody else. And I think that's really, really key. I think there was something I was going to say, and this must be age because I can't remember what I was going to say, but the other things I think we have learnt over time has in how we look at leadership, in a sense, from the fivefold ministry. I think understanding that I don't have to be, I have to be who, I know I keep repeating it, but I have to be who my calling, my gifting. I don't have to, in one way, others on the team are an evangelist and others are prophets and whatever. And, for me, pastoral is something I'm passionate about. People, I'm passionate about seeing people move from to outrun me is complete joy in my life. It's one of my biggest joys, and seeing people set free. And for me, just keeping in my lane is really, really key.
So obviously, Emily, you're at a different stage than Lissie. So you're now sort of frontline leadership. So what are the 2 or 3 things that you've noticed that you're now having to walk through that perhaps a year ago wasn't there?
So a big thing that I've been thinking about or learning about recently is about offence and taking and how I deal with offence. Sort of like most of us, like to get things right the majority of the time. So when I do get criticism, or may not even be criticism, but I take it as critical, I'm really having to guard my heart of how I deal with that. Very good. How I then, so at the AOG there was a conference I was at recently, and one of the talks was actually saying, could we be an unoffendable people? Could we actually choose, because we take offence, could we choose to not take it? And
so what was the answer?
Well, we could.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
We can. We could try to do that. And it's not even necessarily about just having a thick skin, but it's about just not letting things offend you and hearing where people are coming from, respecting their wisdom. We've got an older population at our church, and I do respect their wisdom and want to take that as support and not criticism, and be able to have conversations with people about why they want things done a certain way, and it's not necessarily because I'm not good enough, and that's I think again ties in with the identity. if I know who I am in Christ, then it's not about not being good enough, but it's about, working with a group of people who do want to see the church succeed and me succeed. So, yeah, definitely learning a lot about that, about what to do with offence and how to deal with people having criticisms or ideas and differences of opinions.
Yeah, I remember we did a masterclass with Danny Silk. It must be about, but it was pre-COVID, so it's a while ago. And Danny said, you need to receive feedback. And when I heard feedback, I thought I heard criticism. I thought, you're just going to be criticised. But actually, that's not the case. You still get people criticise, and sometimes that's justifiable. Poor behaviour needs to be confronted. But feedback is a great opportunity to adjust, isn't it? And not being offended. And in any role of leadership, people just feel that they can just say what they like. Even when you've just finished a Sunday, you're walking out, someone, I'm saying this to you in love, and it wrecks your whole week, the rest of your weekend, and probably a little bit of the next week. But yeah, learning to overcome offence is
I think one of the things,
or not being offended.
Yeah, I think one of the wisest pieces of advice came from the guys that I give us oversight, Ian and Marge Russell, and they're just a sweet couple. But one of the things they really encouraged us, and I've tried to apply it, it's not always happened, but actually to shower down after situations. In other words, shake the stuff off. Don't allow it to affect you. Don't allow it to stick to you. And as the Bible talks, and Jesus says, when you're not received, shake the dust off your feet. And we were having this conversation recently, and I didn't realise actually you go into situations, you actually brush the dust off your feet, and because
I tap my shoes sometimes.
Because sometimes we just have to shake it off. Yeah. We cannot allow stuff to affect us, and when I do allow things to affect, it affects me and what I'm doing in leadership. So learning to shake the dust off, to shake off those things in your life, those words that are not always kind, or how people want to challenge something you do, or want to give you advice, or whatever it may be, in the sweetest way sometimes. But sometimes you just have to think, because if you see it from a place of criticism and not take offence, which is, I think it's such a wise thing that you were saying, and that just shake it off. I've learned that if you don't do that, it causes real damage.
And I forgot, but a while ago, me and a friend who we were kind of in that stage of leading with our husbands, but it was, sort of just starting this journey of women in leadership. But we used to, before we went to church in the mornings, we'd like spray ourselves, do a metaphorical spray ourselves down with non-stick spray, like a non-stick praying, like in a pan, and spray yourself down. Teflon coating, so stuff didn't stick. Because at the end of the day, it's not. Yeah. It's what the enemy uses, isn't it, to cause division and to cause unrest, and then to cause us to not do as well in our roles. So it's no good.
For me, the challenge is when Lizzie made that statement, sometimes you've got to be a man, you've got to act like a man in order to succeed. I honestly believe there was some truth in what Lizzie was saying, that
it's been recorded, that, isn't it?
It is, Lizzie's right. Okay, so I'm not comfortable. I'm not uncomfortable with saying when people are right. I think Lizzie was so right that in church leadership, sometimes we're asking. So if we had a situation where one of our women leaders got quite emotional, and it was kind of just chatting around. It was some of the blokes felt it was a bit of a weakness, and yet Jesus was emotional.
He wept.
And yet no one has ever said that was a weakness of Jesus. And I do, Lizzie will get more, you're certainly more, you're more gentle than I am. So when I meet with people, sometimes if they just need a bit of TLC, then I would say you probably need to meet with Lizzie rather than sit with me, because I would I will kind of try and help you solutionize what you're doing. And I think it's so important to recognise the strengths. And, I don't know you that well, Emily, but we've got to know each other over the last couple of years. I see you as a real woman of strength. And, I love it when we was at a recent training, weren't we? There was about 12 of us in the room, and you were just asking such great questions.
Absolutely.
And you were probably thinking, maybe I'm talking too much, but I thought, no, you're asking.
No, go for it.
Go on. Because the thing is, we learn by asking questions. I learn more by my mistakes than my successes. I learn when things don't go well, I go to God. When things go really spiffingly smooth, I kind of forget to ask God, well, okay, what things...
It's the Jewish way of learning.
It is, yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
That's how I was brought up, was,
ask
the question, because probably most other people in the room have got the same question, so you might as well ask it.
But you're what I've learned, just want to encourage you, is that you do ask questions, even if you think, don't you know the answer to that? But you're not afraid to be vulnerable.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think that's a real strength that you carry, and we just want to honour you. And I know the task that you've taken on has not come without its challenges, but what we've seen of you has been just absolutely amazing. And we're just so proud of you. I know Alan is, sorry, Alan, keep mentioning you. We don't normally, but Alan is like, that's amazing.
But that shows wisdom, because you've placed people around you that are going to encourage, build you up, and strengthen you. As much as you strengthen yourself in the Lord, you need people around you that are going to encourage you to move forward. And I think that is wisdom. I really do. Because we all need those people around us.
I'm not here to pay you too many compliments. I said you were right, so that's the first one. But the second thing is, what I've learned from Lissie is, Lissie will hear God far earlier than I will, and that's a real gift that I get from Lissie. That she'll come and say, I've just been thinking about this, and we need each other within the bride. I think I see more arrogance in men leaders than I do in female leaders. And I think, sometimes we need to stop being so arrogant, stop feeling that us men, that we're quite, you get a much more rounded version of what is the Lord saying when we bring people to the table who think differently than we do. And I just want to encourage us, guys, if you lead a church, I just want to encourage you to allow people to speak into your life, allow people to challenge some of your opinions and views, listen. I can only say this from Lissie, but, I know Lissie has a deep walk with God, and she hears God, and by that wisdom, it's helped shape me and do things differently. And I remember years ago, you sometimes as leaders you go from one meeting to the next, and then sometimes they're not. I know people think we only work on Sunday, but we're working sometimes 24/7, and we go from one meeting to the next. And I remember Lissie, when Lissie used to work in psychiatric care, she said, but before you don't take from one meeting all your negatives and place it on the next person you meet. And Lissie was sort of saying you just need to see that person that you're meeting in the second meeting as them, rather than bringing this baggage into the next meeting. And I took that on board, because people deserve the best us. And I just want to say to you guys, you haven't got to prove yourself. Coming back to this verse in Job, their father granted them an inheritance along with their brothers. These daughters of Job didn't have to prove themselves to get the inheritance. They got it because they were Job's daughters, and he saw their strength. And so I just believe God wants to say to you and to women across across the globe, this is a great time to be in the bride of Christ. We're seeing so many wonderful things happening, and there are challenges. And so, guys, if you were to, there might be some ladies listening to this and young girls who think, I want to be called, I feel I'm called to church leadership. What's your one piece of advice that you would give to them?
It was interesting. Someone came to me only a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about when I stepped back from leadership, and they said it must be really nice to spend time with the Lord for just you. And I said, I only spend time before the Lord for just me. The overflow of what I bring comes from what I spend time with the Lord with.
Absolutely.
It has to be about my relationship with Jesus, and out of the overflow comes what I bring to the bride of Christ.
Good piece of advice right there, Emily.
I think looking how Jesus led, what things that Jesus did, I very much see myself as a servant leader. I know when I asked, I felt I wanted to come into leadership, and just because I felt like I had a lot to give, like I'd feel like I'd been filled up with stuff. I'd done Eastgate school, evening school for a couple of years, and I thought, I want to be able to give this stuff out. And I asked God what, I'd really like, I put it on the table, said I'd really like to get into leadership, and he told me to put the chairs out, start doing stuff, start being active in your local church, because you need, that servant heart is what I think Jesus is looking for in leaders, people that serve. His disciples served, food, served the 5,000. That's the kind of things that they did. So I would look at, if you're really at the beginning of this journey, is to look at how you can serve your local church.
That is a beautiful piece of advice.
That is just
awesome. Guys, it's just been a real joy to have you on. Thank you for coming. Guys, we just hope this has been beneficial. There will be more conversations along these kind of lines alongside other issues. But remember, guys, that you are the head and not the tail, and God is going to do something good through you today.
How you left the 99 to find us, to find us.